Welcome to another episode of China Update, where I provide you with the most up-to-date political, economic and geostrategic analysis on the world's number 2 economy. My name is Tony. Let's jump in. Okay, happy Wednesday everybody. We begin with a quick update to the trade tensions between China and its relations with the US and the EU. We have covered these stories closely in recent months, so we won't repeat the details. This is supplementary coverage. UK-based Reuters, citing unnamed sources, reports today that European Union governments exposed divided views on the merits of EU tariffs on imports of China-built electric vehicles in a non-binding but still influential vote on Tuesday. The European Commission, which oversees the bloc's trade policy, has set provisional tariffs of up to 37.6% on EVs imported from China to counter what it says are unfair subsidies, and has canvassed EU member views in a so-called advisory vote. A dozen EU members voted in support of the tariffs, 4 voted against, and 11 abstained, the sources said. The Commission is expected to take this into account when deciding whether to follow up with definitive duties in what is the EU's highest profile trade case yet. France, Italy and Spain voted in favour, while Germany, Finland and Sweden abstained, government sources told the outlet. Meanwhile, the European Commission has signalled to Volkswagen and BMW that it may consider lowering tariffs on the 2 car makers' imports of China-made EVs. The UK has also indicated that it is not planning to follow the EU's lead in imposing tough tariffs on Chinese electric vehicle imports. But the Trade Secretary told G7 trade ministers that the UK would, quote, remain vigilant, end quote. On the other side of the Atlantic, commentators are discussing what a second Trump term would mean for trade with the PRC. According to new research from UBS Group AG published on Monday, new tariffs of 60% on all Chinese exports to the US would more than halve China's annual growth rate. Earlier this year, former US President Trump was reported to be considering a flat 60% tariff on Chinese imports. If that happened, writes the UBS economists, it would cut 2.5 percentage points from China's gross domestic product in the year that follows. A devastating hit. Half of that drag would come from the drop in exports, while the rest would be from the hit to consumption and investment, they wrote, expressing, quote, over time potentially more exports through the production in other economies can help reduce the impact of higher US tariffs, but there is also a risk of other countries raising tariffs on imports from China as well, end quote. Next up, we have some updates to the housing crisis. We remember that Beijing has rolled out policies in recent months in an attempt to digest unsold inventory of finished homes. Some localities have begun with the Herculean task. Yesterday, Chinese financial media outlet Caixin writes that the eastern Chinese city of Jinan managed to reduce its supply of unsold properties in core areas last year with help from a central bank pilot program, providing cheap loans to companies that buy properties to convert them into rentals. In 2023, the estimated amount of time it would take for the city's unsold new properties in major urban areas to be sold fell to 24 months, down from 25.3 months the previous year. We note that 18 months still remains a red line. The drawdown in the unsold property stock is largely the work of 2 local state-owned enterprises in the Shandong capital. Quote, each of the companies has a different business model. Jinan Urban Development rents out most homes it acquires and sets the price of rent based on what the market can bear. Jinan City Investment primarily offers rental housing that is government subsidized at below market rates to low and middle income families. End quote. This is slow and steady progress and good for wealth redistribution. Consumption, of course, is an area of deep concern for Beijing, but some commentators worry this is too little to move the needle much. And of course, it's very expensive at a time of local fiscal crisis, which we covered on Monday. Rental yields are also incredibly low across the country as a percentage of the average price of homes, so even at market rental rates, these SOEs will likely not make their money back from these purchases. As Elisa Garcia Herrero, chief economist for Asia Pacific at Natixis, a French investment bank, said on Monday, quote, They've tried it all. To be frank, it's just a bloated sector. It's too big. End quote. Yesterday we covered the poor numbers from Q2. China's new home prices in June fell at the fastest clip in 9 years. New home prices slid 4.5% from a year earlier, hitting the lowest since June 2015, deeper than a 3.9% slide in May. Used home values tumbled 7.9%. With 70% of family assets in China stored in property, every 5% decline in prices could destroy as much as $2.7 trillion in wealth. Next up, China's biggest scandal in a generation. But just quickly, if you're getting some value from today's episode, don't forget to hit the like button. Liking, sharing, and subscribing are all huge helps. And Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee links are also in the description for those who want to help keep the channel financially sustainable. Thank you so much. Next up, China's biggest food scandal in a generation continues into this week. We remember last week the country was rocked by the Beijing News report, which was promoted on the front page and ran to over 5,000 words on the inside pages, closely documenting the transport process of both chemical and food oils. Reporters trailed one tanker truck that loaded up with first-grade edible cooking oil in a city in Hebei province, just 3 days after it had unloaded a cargo of coal-derived chemical oil at a port to the east without any washing or sanitizing of the truck in between. This was and is a shocking story, but equally surprising was that it was permitted to be published on the eve of the politically sensitive third plenum. Taiwan-based outlet China Media Project observed this week, quote, "In a more active press system, Sino-Grain's violations might have been revealed long ago. Enterprising reports like this in the Beijing News have become a true rarity in the Xi Jinping era, as the leadership has emphasized positive propaganda and the need for media to abide by correct public opinion guidance. It goes without saying that such reports should be celebrated when they do appear." End quote. Over the weekend we learned that every oil truck is equipped with a satellite tracking system, so it should be easy to look up a truck's past routes. However, for some time the system went offline for, quote, "upgrade and maintenance," end quote. Over the weekend too, Sino-Grain, the massive SOE at the heart of the scandal, said that it had hired third-party trucking firms to transport its cooking oil, and said that it had launched an investigation into all affiliated companies to uncover contamination risks. The third-party trucking companies typically take orders from traders who buy cooking oil in bulk from producers. Chinese financial media outlet Yitai reports that these traders are usually the ones to decide whether a tanker truck that exclusively transports cooking oil will be used, and whether a tanker truck is cleaned before a new shipment of oil is loaded. The cost of hiring a dedicated edible oil tanker truck is relatively high because of the number of such trucks is limited. I'm sure many viewers, like myself, are very shocked to learn that tankers are allowed to carry both cooking and fuel oils in the first place. Then on Monday this week there was another bombshell revelation in the scandal. Chinese financial media outlet Caixin in an exclusive reported that, quote, "It is common for ships to transport both cooking oil and non-edible oils that could be toxic to humans, and while the vessels are cleaned between voyages, it may not be thorough enough, and cleanliness certificates provided by third-party service providers could be fake," end quote. A captain of a ship that specializes in transporting edible oils told an undercover investigative journalist, quote, "It is not easy to muddle through now. Whereas we used to be able to get a fake sterilization certificate for no more than 3,000 yuan, approximately $400, it now costs over 10,000 yuan, end quote. As anticipated, this massive scandal is being managed by censors online. US-based the China Digital Times published this week an article called "Intense Online Censorship Seeks to Dampen Scandal Over Unwashed Fuel Tankers Transporting Cooking Oil." We end with an excerpt from the piece. Quote, a bombshell expose from state media outlet Beijing News about the use of fuel tanker trucks to transport cooking oil and other edible products without the tankers being washed or disinfected between transports has snowballed into the largest food scandal controversy in China since the 2008 tainted milk and baby formula scandal. Multiple investigations are now underway, including one by the State Council and a number of others by local supervisory bodies and companies implicated in the scandal, such as Sino Grain and Hopeful Grain and Oil Group. The cooking oil transport scandal erupted a mere week before China's long-awaited third plenum, a meeting of the Communist Party Central Committee at which major policy initiatives are often unveiled. Given China's repeated food safety scandals and their potential to further undermine party credibility, the latest scandal is highly politically sensitive. Online censorship of the tanker story has already emerged, with some related phrases unsearchable on Weibo. On July 11th, Weibo users noted the suspiciously convenient timing of the hashtag carcinogens detected in Japanese cooking oil imported into Taiwan, shooting up to third place on Weibo's list of trending topics. One Weibo user commented, "What a clever maneuver. It's the same formula every time. Pile on Japan to save China from embarrassment." A quote from Xi Jinping made at the Central Rural Work Conference in Beijing in 2013, and now being widely shared on the Chinese internet, notes, if the party is unable to ensure food safety, and if this persists, people will begin to question whether we are qualified to govern China. End quote. Okay, that is today's episode of China Update. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. Have a good Wednesday, and I will see you all tomorrow.